I'm going to go out there and make sure that those folks down in Iowa know that their rep doesn't want to come talk to him, but he voted for this stuff. He voted to defund these things. He voted to make it impossible to talk to the VA and cut 70,000 people to care for our veterans. By the way, many of those 70,000 veterans themselves. So I think, again, this is us going out and talking to people, making the case that people are absolutely clear that both parties are not the same. One stands with Elon Musk, the billionaires, and the dismantling of America as we know it, and one that's going to be there for their families. And if we're not out there, Donald Trump, all the podcasts, all the money will fill that void. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going. And if they ask, I'll go. And look, I hope people show up at that town hall and say, look, Governor, what are you offering? Are you offering anything better? That's fair. But not to turn your back and not do it, it's dangerous. Dangerous.
Democratic Governor Tim Walz, the man who should be our vice president right now, just made a huge announcement that has me unbelievably excited, MAGA Republicans scrambling, and Donald Trump furious, a beautiful combination, and you will see exactly why with what he just announced, and it is exactly what Democrats need to be doing, and we are going to get into it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now I don't want to say any more. I just want to hear from Tim Walz.
Yeah, Minnesotans like Canadians. We share a lot, and we share a great relationship. First of all, they're our biggest trading partners. It's incredibly disruptive. The number of people who cross the border both ways, Minnesotans going into Canada to work and Canadians coming into Minnesota. It's beneficial to both of our countries. Look, we get 90% of our potash, which is the fertilizer for our huge ag economy. That's real impacts on real producers, driving up costs for producers at a time when we can't sell our products because Donald Trump has this ridiculous trade war going on. And just quite honestly, the chaos and the uncertainty that it causes, so many Minnesotans are asking, when was Canada our enemy? And it makes no sense. It's very difficult as a governor to be able to set and think about budgets, to be able to think about how are we going to continue to attract folks here. And then he starts, as he did today, a day that I've dreaded as a teacher, as a parent of a student in public schools, and as governor, a senseless attack on the Department of Education. And I hope that I think your viewers know this is, there's no plan behind this. Donald Trump doesn't know how anything works. Donald Trump is this caricature that had a reality TV show that pretended like he knew how to run businesses. The reality is he doesn't. As a governor, we have to make these things work. Local school districts have to understand what are the impacts going to be when you lay off 1,300 experts who are there to make sure that every one of our children get an equitable education. And so it's chaos. And look, I think he thrives in this. And then he tells his supporters that only he can fix it. He's the guy who goes and starts the fire and then stands there and gives directions and acts like he knows how to put the fire out. He has no clue. So it's an arsonist with our economy. It's an arsonist with our institutions. He surrounds himself with people. The idea that the Secretary of Education would not know what IDEA meant, Individual Disability Education Act, that's like your mechanic not knowing how to put air in your tire. And she's in charge of this nation's educational progress. It is catastrophic. And look, the short-term numbers you were talking about, Chris, are real. And I think it flips people like, oh, you know, people who say, I voted for Donald Trump. I didn't know he would fire me. No kidding. No kidding. What I worry about is the generational change that this would make. Look, Ruby Bridges needed to be escorted into those schools and the folks who went into Little Rock because we didn't have an education department that ensured her civil rights were respected. That's gone now. And my son, those of you, your viewers who are out there now who have individual education plans that let them thrive and be their best people, what do they want us to do? Warehouse these kids, not give them the skills? And this is going to impact local schools directly. So it is absolute chaos. And the question I ask is, you said it, Chris. He didn't run on this stuff. He told you to lower prices. You know one thing Linda McMahon in her press conference did not say? She did not use the word children, if I'm not mistaken. She did not talk about educational outcomes. They view education as an expense, just like Elon Musk talks about entitlement programs. Those aren't entitlement programs. Those are the things keeping my mom alive. She paid into Social Security for 80 years. She should get that money back, and that's not what they believe.
I want to go back just on that Canada issue and then come back around to the education cuts. I mean, this insanity about we're going to take Canada 51st state, calling Justin Trudeau governor. It's nuts and it's stupid and it's silly. But at a certain level, it's like, I think across the border, understandably, they're starting to take it seriously. It's the only possible feasible rationale that anyone could kind of figure out for this trade war he's launching. And I wonder, again, as a border state with relationships, you've been talking to your other leaders in Canada. There was this 25% surcharge on your electricity, which was dropped at the last second.
Yeah.
Like, what do you make of those threats and what they mean to that relationship between our two nations?
Yeah. Yeah, and so I don't blame the Canadians. They have to respond to protect their sovereignty and what they're doing. And when Donald Trump puts these on and takes them off, this has so much more damage than him pretending like it didn't impact. We have become untrustworthy. Yeah. And so if they are buying our soybeans or they're buying our corn, they're going to go look for a fair trading partner. And what Donald Trump doesn't understand, he thinks what he did in 2018, where we subsidized farmers to the tune of about $1.63 per bushel of soybeans just to keep them above water as he was fighting his trade war. We lost markets that took us decades to cultivate. They went to Brazil. They went to Argentina. And now we've got a surplus of products while input costs have gone up and nowhere to sell them. This is catastrophic. I had an event out on a farm. Look, I know many of those people didn't vote for us. But what I know about farmers is they understand international trade a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. And they know this is just ridiculous. I think he gets this in his head. And it's, it's like pretend for him, like it's not real. These are long-term cultural shared values. They matter. And the damage that's being done, the lack of trust that's happening, very difficult. So when I call Premier Ford or I call to Manitoba, they feel bad. They know that this is not all the American people doing it, but they feel like they have no recourse except to respond accordingly. And again, he negotiated the damn trade deal with them. If trade is so bad with Canada, he was the guy who signed the deal. It defies logic. But look, I think this is how he ran business. He stiffed contractors. He stiffed workers. He doesn't pay his bills. He declares bankruptcy. The one thing is, his claim that he's the business president, he is the worst possible business executive that I have ever witnessed. And I hope, this is what we need. I need the business community to speak up. The Wall Street Journal, thank you. Thank you for saying this is the stupidest trade war, because I've been saying it. And so now I can go back to my constituents, Republican constituents, and say, this is the reality of what you're facing. So again, there is going to be pain. The richness of a sitting senator like Tommy Tuberville or Elon Musk telling us we're going to have to endure pain. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Again, I think Americans have had it. I hope they've had it. And now we just need to do what we can do to make the case. And look, I own this. We wouldn't be in this mess if we'd have won the election. And we didn't. We have to make sure that Americans know it's not just that Donald Trump is bad, but we're offering them something better. And I think that's what we need to work on.
Let me ask you about that. You said I own this. I mean, obviously, I think, look, after any election, there's just a billion different counterfactuals you can run. There's so many different things. One of the things I've seen in a few interviews you've given, which I think is interesting, is a sense that the campaign that you and your running mate Kamala Harris ran was risk averse, that it was careful. And one of the things I've really perceived is it seems to me there's a huge gap between Musk, Trump, and MAGA world, which seem recklessly risk-seeking. I mean, truly, there's no amount of risk they can't brook. Like, they really want as much risk as possible. And Democrats who seem excessively risk-averse. Do you think it's a fair characterization? Am I onto something here?
No, I think you are. And look, I'm conservative. I believe that systems work for a long time, that you don't have to break them. Are there improvements that need to be done? Yes. And I think we're guilty of sometimes of not acting. Could the Department of Education be more efficient? Absolutely. Are there things we can do there? To get rid of it makes no sense. And so my point on this, and again, I'm probably the last person to give advice because we didn't get it done, but I just felt like Donald Trump floods the zone with this. And I think, Chris, if you'd go ask the average American, what does the Department of Education do? They might not have a clear vision of it. So when Trump says it's a bunch of bureaucrats interfering with your local schools, give local control, we'll give you the money, it sounds pretty good. And we have not provided what that alternative looks like.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it's fair. And look, I do agree, and I think there's a place for this, the disruptors, the folks that shake up systems in a way that are positive for people. But I keep saying this, what is the goal at the end of the day? What is the goal and where is it backed up? There's not a single economist backs tariffs. There's no one there. You know, Linda McMahon, I bet she's never been in a public school. What is she going to do to improve our students' outcomes and lives? And there's a vacuum for us to fill. We should get out there and fill it. Talk about what we're going to do.
Speaking of filling a vacuum, there was word reported last week, the head of the Republican Congressional Committee that sort of, is talking to those frontline members, basically telling all members, House members, Republican members, don't have town halls. It's not worth it. You're just going to get yelled at. Don't do it. And a few Democrats, and I think you're one of them, have basically said, look, we'll do it. If you've got an area of this country that you want to talk to someone and your own Republican rep won't talk to you, I'll go do it. Is that still an open offer from you?
Yeah, I'm going Friday, I think. I'm headed to Iowa. I'm going to go do it. I've been asked by these folks if it works. I'm going to go use the platform that I have and hand them the megaphone to talk about this. I wouldn't do those town halls if I were them either, because they have to defend cutting Medicare, cutting Medicaid, hurting their local public school, fighting a trade war with Canada, just the nonsense and defending President Musk. So I lived through these in 2010 when the Tea Party was there. And they're telling them that these are outside agitators. I heard a few Democrats in 2010 try and say, oh, don't worry about it. These are outside agitators. They were not. They were my neighbors.
Right.
And they were mad and confused about what was going to happen. Now, did the Republicans gin those up? Yeah, they threw fuel on that fire. I'm going to go out there and make sure that those folks down in Iowa know that their rep doesn't want to come talk to him, but he voted for this stuff. He voted to defund these things. He voted to make it impossible to talk to the VA and cut 70,000 people to care for our veterans. By the way, many of those 70,000 veterans themselves. So I think, again, this is us going out and talking to people, making the case that people are absolutely clear that both parties are not the same. One stands with Elon Musk, the billionaires, and the dismantling of America as we know it, and one that's going to be there for their families. And if we're not out there, Donald Trump, all the podcasts, all the money will fill that void.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going. And if they ask, I'll go. And look, I hope people show up at that town hall and say, look, Governor, what are you offering? Are you offering anything better? That's fair. But not to turn your back and not do it, it's dangerous.
This is a huge deal and exactly what Democrats need to be doing right now. We need to be doing outreach in red districts, disaffected Trump voters. We need to be bringing them in. And I posted a tweet about this yesterday. Gavin Newsom is having Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on his podcast. No, we don't need to be platforming these people on our shows. We need to be going to their shows, their districts, reaching their voters, talking to people who realize Donald Trump is screwing them. That is what Tim Walz is doing. He is looking forward to 2026, possibly 2028. And I know that has MAGA very scared. And I love it because she is one of our best communicators. And I expect this tour to be just as successful as every other Democrat going to a red district, which we're starting to see more and more of. And of course, we're going to be covering all of that on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.